How's it going, everybody? This is Trudy Collins, your host for the Podcast Island episode number 20. Podcast Island covers sports, music, film, thought-provoking topics, fun topics, and sometimes just a sit-down interview. This podcast can be viewed only on YouTube at the One Man Island Productions YouTube channel. Clips of the podcast can be viewed on Instagram, Snapchat, TikTok, LinkedIn, YouTube Shorts, and a wide variety of others. It's been a while since I've done one of these podcasts. This is actually the first time I'm doing a solo one via webcam. I'm planning on making this a reoccurring thing every Saturday night, maybe even Sunday night. Pretty much a weekend podcast for you people covering a wide variety of topics. And pretty much today's discussion will be on the much buzzworthy topic in America and maybe even the world, and that is the Katt Williams Shannon Sharpe podcast that happened earlier this month. On January 3rd, Shannon Sharpe dropped a podcast episode where Katt Williams vented about Ricky Smiley, Cedric the Entertainer, Steve Harvey, Earthquake, Marlon Wayans, and Kevin Hart. So for this show, I'm going to be splitting up the discussion into a few parts. One is the black community, the internet, certain comments Katt made about certain people, the momentum that this carries, and also my final thoughts. So I want to start off by acknowledging the comments he made about black men wearing dresses in movies, and pretty much men in general wearing dresses in today's world. Because if you forgot about it, I think about a while ago, Harry Styles once donned a dress for a magazine, which got a lot of people up in arms because it's like, oh my God, look at this guy. He's wearing a dress. He's a male. No one wants to see that. So let's talk about what Marlon Wayans had to say about Katt Williams' comments about a week or two ago. During the podcast, Katt Williams expressed disappointment that Martin Lawrence wanted Williams as a sidekick wearing his first dress in the 2011's Big Mama House film, Like Father, Like Son. He claimed that he turned it down, suggesting Brennan T. Jackson for the role. During an interview with Los Angeles Real 92.3, the acclaimed comedian asserted that the topic only appears taboo in the black community. "You talking to a black man that put on a dress," he said. This is Marlon Wayans talking. "That conversation to me is silly. It's a negative thing that is only in black people. We have for some reason been programmed to look down on the craziest parts about our spirits. We're supposed to embrace our past, our history, our heroes, and different levels of comedy." Now, for those who don't know, in 2004, Marlon and Shawn Wayans teamed up for a now certified cult classic called White Chicks, and that's a film that I have never seen. I think I saw it on a preview on one of those like early tapes that you had, where it showed other films before you got to the actual film you were watching. It's one of those I think one of those in-house movie theaters you've always had. But the film saw the brothers donning whiteface and dressing up as women during an FBI investigation. The Wayans wore various women's clothing and accessories in the film, including lipstick, dresses, heels, wigs, and more. The movie was created on a $37 million budget and raked in $113.1 million at the box office. Now, with what Marlon Wayans said, I 100% agree. One, not just the black community, but society itself is very sensitive to homosexuality and transvestites. Anything that's not masculine or pro-male that we've been conditioned to throughout our entire lives, they are against that. I believe that a lot of men who are gay would rather be gay than actually admit they're gay to maybe their friends or loved ones, or if they're in the public eye, like celebrities, they would rather hide it than actually display it. Actually, I think it was a stand-up that Katt Williams did a long time ago. I think it was the Pimp Chronicles edition of his live stand-up that he did, in which he exposed Hollywood for having like homosexuals in having mansions and having those interactions at mansion parties behind closed doors, which is true. A lot has come to be that a lot of celebrities swing both ways, or at least We're switch hitters. That's the reality of it. But when you come into comedy, let's understand something. Comedy is an art, and you cannot ignore any part of the canvas if you want to paint a pretty picture. Especially if there's many different ways you can paint that picture. There's color crayons, pencils, paint, oil pastels, marker, or just regular ballpoint pen. There's many different ways to actually paint a great picture, and you shouldn't ignore it all because of personal bias. If it's not your thing to watch this type of medium, this type of comedy style, that's fine. But then again, it raked in a lot of dollars. It got people to the movie theater. It's very authentic, which people like. People like authenticity, and people like when you push the edge, when you push the envelope to garner some kind of reaction or to get people invested in what you're doing. Let's get into the acting part. Now, let me be honest with you. I am not an actor. I never trained to be an actor. I don't think I could be an actor. Maybe I could. That's not my style. But I am a big fan of watching movies, animated films, a lot of stuff. Like many of you guys, I spend time watching actors act on TV. And black men wearing dresses, or just men in general wearing dresses, it's not just a film thing, okay? Remember that. Harry Styles wore a dress for Vogue magazine. But in film, Robin Williams wore a dress. Jared Leto wore a dress. Tim Curry, Ed Wood, Willem Dafoe, and I'm sure plenty of others. And understand when I say that those men that I mentioned are white men, which also mentioned the black men that have donned dresses and become successful. Vin Rames, Tyler Perry, Marlon Wayans, and Martin Lawrence. And understand something, they didn't become famous for those roles. The reason why the movie was a success, the reason why the people gravitated towards those characters was because they were very authentic characters. I mean, Madea. People still to this day, whenever they see Tyler Perry, they want him to do an impression of Madea. That's the reality of it. He didn't need Madea to be successful. I'm pretty sure if he didn't have Madea, he would have still been successful. But then again, that Madea character is pretty much the rocket fuel that kind of got people to look at him in a different way. And here's the thing. That wasn't his only success. He's had many Broadway plays, television shows, films, and him actually starring in a film after using that as a success. And not only that, let's look at this from a different perspective, a different angle, as I would say. Let's just throw the women's dress out the water, just for now. Katt Williams has always, not always, but a lot of times portrayed himself as a pimp. A lot of his branding is pimping. One of his stand-up comedy DVDs was called Pimp Chronicles. I know you don't want black men wearing dresses and emasculating themselves, but understand this right now. Do you think young black men want their kids? Do you think black men want their kids to be pimps? Because you portrayed that, and that's pretty much how you marketed yourself at one point. Do you think people want to see their kids watching Django and seeing Samuel Jackson portray Steven like that? Do you think they want to see that? Do you think black men want to see their kids watching American Gangster and want to be a gangster, or watching Training Day and be a rogue cop? Understand something. Acting is not just showing up on set and saying a bunch of words and eventually you go home. No, you have to do the necessary homework, and you have to put in the effort to become that character. That way you can generate the right emotions, hit the right points in the heart for people to not only believe that this person who's not the actual person he's playing believe you, but they want to root for you. Think about this now. Every time you see Robert Downey Jr., do you know what people think? Iron Man. Do you know what people think when they see Hugh Jackman? They don't think Real Steel, that movie with the robots. They think Wolverine. Do you know, hell, Josh Peck is still remembered for his 3 seasons on Drake and Josh. And that ended like 2 decades ago. You can't limit an actor's desire to test his or her range. Horror, action, science fiction, drama, and thriller. These individuals, some of them don't want to be known for one thing. A lot of people want to take those chances to be something else. To let them know that, hey, I can't, I not only can do comedy, I can do action, I can do horror, I can do um, noir, I can do all these range of things. And not only that, it increases their value for the next project. It makes them be able to work with a Quentin Tarantino, Martin Scorsese, Ryan Coogler, Steven Spielberg, whoever, Angelina Jolie, any director they want. It widens their range, which means it opens their pockets, which makes them a further asset to the Hollywood industry, which a lot of people have criticized for. Now, look, again, this always comes back to homosexuality and the uncomfortable it makes people understand something. That's you. You can't expect other people to follow your lead because again, if everybody followed the same pathway to success, then are we really branching ourselves out and you know putting our toes into every different pool that there is in different categories of life? We're not. We're just hot. We're just sheltering ourselves. You put on a dress for an acting role does not make you less of a man because we're going to see you playing a role that's different than you are. Hell, it might make you more attractive for more big time roles. I mean, hell, Ice Cube started out as a rapper, and then he went into roles that presented himself as a tough guy. As a guy that you don't want to mess with. And then he did Are We There Yet, which presented him more of as a family man, which is a big contrast to what we've always known him as. That's just an example, but there's many. I mean, hell, what's that guy's name? I'm thinking about. I think his name. Jonah Hill. Super bad. 21 Jump Street. Comedy roles, and then he did Wolf of Wall Street. Now Wolf of Wall Street has comedy in it, but he played a serious character. That movie was not comedy. It was actual quality film that could be up for an Oscar at any time. Actors need to be more than just one thing because you only be. That's why for me, whenever I watch comedians and I say, "Oh, he's a great actor. He's great," like yeah, in comedy movies. But would it be the same thing in action movies? Would it be the same thing as in drama? Romantic comedies will be the same thing? Maybe not. Maybe it will. But again, you'll have more respect. Well, not respect, but you'll open more eyes if you can just branch out from the norm and be something more than what you're accustomed to, and you'll gain a bigger following. Now let's get into pretty much like the reaction that this generated, because this became a big thing among social media outlets, among radio stations, television. It became a huge situation. I guarantee you some comedian out there is going to talk about this on a stand-up and pretty much roast Katt Williams. And maybe he won't. I mean, hell, you never know. But then again, this became a big thing. Like Dave Chappelle, of all people, I mean, he doesn't spare any people. He got after Katt Williams. He said, quote, "What part of the game is this? He either N-word, he uttered N-word. He didn't say anything about any of these white boys. None of these white boys function like that." Chappelle said during one of his recent shows via Deadline, quote, "Katt Williams is one of the best painters in the game. So why are you drawing ugly pictures of us? Stop. Hurt people, but I am a hurt person that never hurt people." And he does it all the time. The next person is Kevin Hart. Kevin Hart responded to William Street. He said he urged him to let go of his anger. Hart tweeted, "Gotta get that anger up and out, ya champ. It's honestly sad." Ludacris, I think, did a diss track on him on his phone. That was very interesting. Trick Daddy also got on it. So the Miami rap legend Trick Daddy jumped into the fray, defending his friend Ricky Smiley, whom Williams had criticized for allegedly throwing a tantrum on the set of Friday After Next. Trick Daddy emphasized that black men should support one another rather than tear each other down for the sake of online attention, echoing the sentiments of many who felt that Williams' interview unnecessarily targeted fellow black entertainers. Tiffany Haddish also had something to say, but I want to talk about those previous comments because they really paint the picture of maybe why Katt Williams went off the way he did. And I think the reason why is because he was a hurt person. And not because like not because maybe a girlfriend cheated on him, maybe his kids don't talk to him, anything. I think it's like someone had a quote on one of the videos I saw while I was doing my research and putting the script together, is that someone said that maybe Katt Williams didn't get invited to the party, even though all the cool kids, and he is one of them, he's one of the cool kids, were there, but he didn't get invited. Maybe that's what happened. Maybe somewhere along the line, maybe he was left out of that conversation, or maybe he wasn't getting the pie, enough of the pie that he wanted. And my thing is this: Katt Williams, you will always be that legend. We all still love you. We all love your comedy bits. We all love your movie roles. We will always love you. But the thing is that you can't use the internet as a place to vent or a place to do something, especially if you feel like, especially if you're targeting certain people, some younger, some of your generation. You just can't do that. And if I've always said this, if you have an issue with someone personally, you can always talk to them. But if you need to vent, you can always find a therapist. And the one thing that I think it's important is to understand this. We're in a state of the economy where the ethnic background or the dominant race is dwindling for certain races, and now it's becoming more even. And the last thing we need is our own people tearing each other down over pettiness or anger, or feel like somebody has done something to them, or just maybe misplaced anger. The last thing we need is people to fight amongst each other, because the last thing we need is to say we're united, say we need to be united, and to have Katt Williams, of all people, come out and tear each other down and just put and like stunt any momentum that we probably already had. I mean, hell, The Color Purple came out like a month ago, and we should be happy for that musical, and now we're talking about this. And this is also leading into the next topic, and that is the internet. So here's the thing about the internet, the thing that we're all talking about nowadays, is that the internet is probably more powerful of a marketing tool than television. And the reason why is everybody has a phone. Everybody has a iPhone or a smartphone, pretty much, and they're always on it. Whether it's Instagram, TikTok, Snapchat, Facebook, X. They're probably watching a YouTube video, probably on researching something. There's always an ad. There's always a way to reach somebody, by hook or by crook. Wherever you drive your car into the city or town, wherever you're from, there's always some form of way you can reach someone via media. Politicians have to market themselves during the campaigns or to become president. The NFL markets a lot of what they do to LGBT communities, or some community that are very much casual viewers, to get them to patronize their product. Steve Harvey transitioned himself from comedy to talk shows because it was a good business. The same way the internet is a good business. Let's understand something. The internet is in a place where you have to be very careful of how you present yourself, because people want themselves to be seen in a certain light. People want themselves to be viewed in a certain light, because that's what marketing is. That's why a lot of organizations have clauses in their contracts to make sure that whoever is representing them doesn't veer away from what makes them successful. You remember about a year or two ago when Aaron Rodgers had that incident with the COVID vaccine, and State Farm pretty much yanked all of his commercials from airing on any kind of television station? And that's because he damaged the reputation, damage their business. Now people want to say, hey, what's with State Farm? Oh, they must be woke. They must be Democrats. They must be this, whatever. And my thought was, hey, they have clauses in their contract. And I'm pretty sure if Aaron Rodgers is as smart as he says he is, he probably read them, or at least the agent informed him of these things that could happen. But guess what? He still went on and did it. Is that his fault? Hey, he did what he wanted, but he can't be mad at one place for doing what's in best interest for them. Asking what's best interest for the opposite party. You have to play by certain people's rules if you want their cash, if you want their dough. The same way YouTube has guidelines. The same way households have guidelines. It's the same reason why if you don't play by your parents' rules, they're gonna kick you out. That's just the way. That's the reality. Now, if you don't like that, you can always go find your own avenues to talk about whatever you want to talk about without any fear of being yanked from the program. And the reason why I say that is because Stephen A. Smith talked about the current state of media. One of the things that he mentioned is that this term called new media, and pretty much it's kind of people like me that have their own camera set up, have their own microphone, and have a way to broadcast their thoughts without being pushed back on it. But here's the thing about journalists. Journalists have the responsibility. Not all of them do this. I will admit that. But as a person who did study journalism as a minor, earned my bachelor's degree, but I also majored in it for my master's degree. What I want to say here is this. We have a responsibility to get the facts. And if you want to get the facts, you have to fact check them. So I believe that if Katt Williams was on a podcast or a broadcasting station that was interviewed or led by Gayle King, Stephen A. Smith, or someone else who has high journalistic integrity, who's well known in the community, I believe a lot of what Katt Williams said would have been a lot of pushback. And with that being said, he would have probably not had the same impact. If anything, the impact would have gone on to the reporters for interrupting them, because their job is to make sure that what you're saying is accurate, or else because the journalists will get more in trouble than Katt Williams say, because what Katt Williams say is pretty much from his perspective. But what he needs to understand is this, and what everybody has to understand is this: just because you have clout as a writer, athlete, politician, does not mean that you're always right, because at the end of the day, you need followers. Here, a lot of people hate Taylor Swift. One of the reasons why she's successful. Some people say she's overrated, but the facts say that she generates a lot of revenue from concerts. A lot of her albums do well. That's just the facts. Now you may think she's too much in her face, but when you are a person of interest like Taylor Swift, when you are a person with talent and who is an attractive woman, you are going to get attention. And that's how it should be. The same way Tom Brady got attention when he was winning the Super Bowl. The same way Patrick Mahomes has attention, winning championships. The same way Michael Phelps gets attention, winning those gold medals. It happens every single day, made different mediums. Brie Larson, she gets attention. She's controversial, but people still talk about her. That's the power of internet. The more clicks you give, the more times advertisers will take a note of that, and they'll patronize and put their ads, if not next to or within that product. But we're in a situation where people want the drama. They want people to voice their concerns, voice their animosity towards other people, to create drama. That way we can create these divisive lines. That way we can definitely point that this guy's right, this guy's wrong, this guy's right, this guy's wrong. And at the end of the day, the facts speak for themselves. And at the end of the day, some people do believe that what Katt Williams said came out of anger, but not out of a place of truth. And that's the issue. Is that we yearn for, that people want to voice their opinions without being corrected, because what they preach should be looked at as gospel, looked at as listening to the voice of the Lord. But at the end of the day, you are human. And you do have a little bit of bias in you. So a lot of things can be skewed to one way to fit the picture that you say did happen. But there's always two sides of the story. and there's also the truth, which lies in between. And that's what journalists are paid and expected to do, is to find the truth. So more times you see this new media come out, you're going to get outside the story. And the more followers you have, the more a lot of times people don't think it's true, even if it possibly. All right, so let's look at this how Katt Williams looks after this whole situation. Understand this. This is a very topical topic. This is a very thought-provoking topic. It's a very word-sensitive topic. Pretty much, everybody's gonna have an opinion about this. Joe Rogan's gonna have an opinion about this. Gayle King, comedians, Chris Rock. People are going to have a lot of opinions about this. It's going to be memed. It's going to be referenced in interviews. It's going to be mentioned on broadcasting, podcasts, whatever. It's going to be mentioned for a long time. Not for a week, not for 5 weeks, not for half a year, for a year. Because understand something. We still talk about Will Smith slapping Chris Rock, and that was a year ago. Well over a year. It was like nearly 2 years ago. And guess what happened after that? Chris Rock went on stand-up and became one of the most anticipated stand-up shows we'll ever see, because he kept his mouth shut from the moment he got slapped. No, from the moment the show ended, he never said a word. We all were wondering what's going to happen, and the moment those doors opened, the moment the tickets went on sale, and the moment the people sat and waited for him to say something, it exploded. So the question is, will this generate? I think this will generate the momentum that I think Katt Williams either intentionally created for himself or inadvertently created for himself. Because here's the thing: people are gonna wait for his next stand-up bit. People are gonna wait for his next movie, probably. People are gonna wait for his next interview. Because guess what? They're gonna say, "Oh, he has more to say. What other secrets are you hiding?" Now the question is, will this be a positive, negative, or in between? For him, both. But for other comedians, possibly negative. It all depends on which side of the fence you lie on. But then again, Katt Williams has a lot of followers. Katt Williams has an army. It may not be as big as Taylor Swift's army, but then again, you can make a lot of dough with the army that Katt Williams have. He's been around for a long time, more than 20 years. Again, one of the greatest comedians we've had and still have today. And I believe comedy is better with him in it. But then again, it's not better with him tearing down other comedians. And that leads to my final thoughts. My final thoughts is this. Katt Williams is not a good comedian. He's a great comedian. One of the greatest comedians of all time. I'm pretty sure if you asked maybe 500 people, 300, maybe 400 of them will say Katt Williams is their number one. You'll still see him in movies in Friday After the Next. You'll still see him in My Wife and Kids with Michael Wayans. You'll still see him on clips on YouTube. You'll still see memes about him on Instagram, Twitter, whatever account you use. You'll still see him. He's that iconic. He's very authentic. He's the kind of person that you can pick out of a crowd. He's that different. The way he walks, the way he talks, the way he presents himself, the way he looks at the world. He's from Ohio. He's not from New York when there's a wide variety of people. So he has to see it from the masses. And maybe that's the reason why Katt Williams and Marlon Wayans have different viewpoints on comedy. Because it all stems from the same thing. You can be black, but it doesn't mean that you all will see the same thing. Ohio is more of a swing state, but it's mostly conservative. New York is like a more condensed version of California, because it's a wild, wild west in California. But you still see different people, races, people, the way they look, the way they talk. I mean, people act differently from different boroughs, let alone different cities in the same state. It's insane. And I think it's important to understand something. Katt Williams is a great comedian. For me, he's up there with Bernie Mac and Eddie Griffin. That's just my opinion. So I don't hate him for his comments. But then again, if this becomes a reoccurring issue where you're constantly going on talk shows, you're constantly going on these news sites, or providing these hot mic sound bites, to generate attention, you're going to do more damage to others and also your reputation. Because now people are going to go from seeing you as a person who spoke his mind and exposed Hollywood. That's what some will say. Or people are going to look at you as a person who just whines and complains. You might become the male version of Jada Pinkett Smith. I don't think that's going to be an ideal thing for anybody, but if you keep it up, you could be in that conversation. Part of me believes that this was premeditated, and if it was, shame on him. And this should be a lesson to everybody that if you're angry and emotional state, stay off of social media. And if you really want to make money off of this, you could always go and make a movie about this. You can always go and do a stand-up comedy bit, because once someone says, because here's the thing, you can't prevent someone from saying something about what they saw on stage. You may not be able to record it, but you can talk about it, and people talk. It's like an adult version of high school. If one person hears it, the whole school is going to hear it by the end of the week, if not after a week and a half. And no one should be blaming Shannon Sharpe for anything, because he's not technically a journalist. Even though what he did was journalistic, it's not journalism. But then again, his podcast is successful because he is very authentic. He does things his way. But once again, I don't hate Katt Williams for what he said. But then again, because I do believe that I do give a 1 strike or 2 strikes, depending who you are. But this becomes a consistent avenue that he goes on and bashes other celebrities without even rectifying the issue behind closed doors. Because here's the thing, Katt Williams has been involved with Steve Harvey's projects. He's also been involved in Ice Cube's projects. I know, sure as shit, he has a connection with Kevin Hart, Tiffany Haddish, Dave Chappelle, Earthquake, Ricky Smiley, Trick Daddy. I'm sure he has at least a follow on social media with at least all of them. You tell me that the issue you had, you couldn't talk to them? Is there something that they did to you couldn't talk to them? Whatever happened to, hey, I heard you did this. What's up with that? You couldn't just text him, call him. Maybe if you're in the same area, you might like tap on the shoulder. Hey, can I talk to you about something? It seems like today's internet, people don't want compromise. They want people to see that they're right, and that's fine. I mean, we all don't like to be wrong, but then again, do we all want the truth? Do we all want understanding? Because understanding is way more important than being wrong. Because once you get understanding, because a lot of times, what creates animosity, what creates arguments, is miscommunication. Sometimes people, if you hear something and you don't get the whole context, but you feel offended, just make sure you get the whole context. You never know if you caught the end of a conversation, the beginning, and maybe you missed the middle, or get the middle, you missed the beginning, and then you get the end. You never know. Always do your due diligence to get the whole story before you start venting your frustrations. Because the last thing you want to do is watch a movie and not realize that what at the beginning of the movie, what you missed, it was a big impact at the end. That's like watching a movie and you catch the middle and you're wondering, where did this guy come from? I didn't see him. Well, you missed the first 15 minutes. He was there and became a big part of the story. But that's my 2 cents of the Katt Williams situation. Next week, I'm going to be talking about, should people have a plan B? There's a lot of discussion about sometimes if you have a plan B, that doesn't mean you're all in on plan A. And if you have a plan B, that means you're admitting defeat. I'm going to provide my 2 cents. I'm not going to say that what I say is the truth. I'm providing a different thought process when it comes to a topic like that. Once again, I'd like to thank everybody that listened to the podcast. My name is Trita Collins. This has been the 20th edition of the Podcast Island. Topic, Katt Williams. Once again, the podcast can be viewed only on YouTube. Clips of the podcast can be viewed on TikTok, Instagram, Snapchat, YouTube Shorts, and also LinkedIn. My name is Trita Collins. I'll see you next week on the Podcast Island.